file, email, attach, and send. But once they've had the experience, as I've had and others of you have had, of the tools working better and saving them time, saving the company money, making you more successful, they become champions themselves. And then even in small teams, when I was talking with Dave Shepler, he said it was amazing how even with 20, 25 people, we still had these information silos that would start to build up. Programmers would start to hoard information about some information or parsing part of the Watson code. So those silos needed to be broken down, and behavior change took time. They had patience with the team. Another aspect of engagement is that it requires us to get out of the inbox. I talked about how easy it is, unfortunately, to do file attach. In a lot of ways, the inbox experience has become a commodity. The one on the left is mine, the one on the right is my arch enemies from a messaging standpoint, Microsoft Outlook, right? But from the back of the room, I've had CIOs give me the wrong answer when I put this slide up. It's difficult to tell. And if they're that similar in capability and user experience, why would I invest a lot of money in moving between one or the other? The reality is that this is the way a lot of us view the inbox today. I'm a prisoner. I'm stuck in it. I can't get out of it. How can we escape? How many of you saw the movie Shawshank Redemption? That's good, because this reference wouldn't fly at all if you hadn't. My suggestion in our experience is to get out of your inbox the way Andy Dufresne got out of Shawshank Prison. It wasn't a spoon that he used, right? He had a rock hammer. He took out one, basically, handful of dirt at a time. But that's the experience that successful social businesses are having in adopting these tools. Let me show you what I mean. Bringing all these things into context, we said we agree we need new tools. We need web meetings, we need wikis, we need the ability to search profiles and experts. We need to engage with them in ways other than sending an email message to 50 people. How do I do that? Well, I want to be more transparent than my competitors are, right? Now, transparency is where the HR and the finance and the accounting and legal people start to freak out. You're not going to put a wiki out there with the salaries of all executives in it, are you? No, of course we're not trying to do that. The key word in this is removing unnecessary boundaries. What's an example of an unnecessary boundary? Well, an unnecessary boundary is what customer I happen to be talking to today, or what customers I'm preparing to talk to tomorrow. And I happen to be a huge believer in microblogging, but mostly I'm a believer in it from an internal perspective. I do all of my microblogging in Lotus Connections. I told you a minute ago that Lotus Connections has now become front and center of our intranet, W3. So you can see here yesterday my status was I'm updating my presentation for tomorrow's meeting with MWLUG. I started to update my internal status in Connections about 1.5 to 2 years ago because my efforts to keep up a full-size blog failed. I was lucky if I could write a paragraph every day or two. Just too much on my plate. But 140 characters, that I can do. So what it started to become is, here are the customers that I'm going to meet with. I was going to Beijing to meet with Lenovo to talk to them about their use of Lotus Notes. And I posted that information to my microblog internally in Lotus Connections. One of my colleagues, who is a same-time person, said, hey, I saw in your connection status that you're in Beijing meeting with Lenovo. I know that you're not a same-time guy. You happen to be the notes guy. Would you mind walking down the hall while you're there and talking to Dr. Wong? Because we have a proof of concept going on at the same time. Now, I can't say that my colleague Carl was going to buy a $5,000 plane ticket to go to Beijing to meet with that customer. So I can't write a $5,000 savings in here because of my use of microblogging. But that customer did get an in-person visit from an IBMer, from me, who said, I care about your project. I want it to be successful. Is there anything that we can do for you? And it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't microblogged it. I would never have microblogged it if it wasn't available to me in a nimble fashion, giving me context, information when and where I need it. The when and where I needed it is alongside of my inbox, because like so many others, I'm behind the bars, I'm trapped in that inbox. I use a plugin in my Lotus Notes client to update my connection status every day. I didn't go to that portal user interface. In fact, that portal user interface didn't exist at the time that I started to do this a couple of years ago. It wasn't that easy to do. The plugin, though, was available. So every day when I started my day in my inbox, I could easily go in here and I could microblog my status. Who am I meeting with today? Updating my presentation. Now this isn't just an internal statement. David showed the LinkedIn plugin. I used the LinkedIn plugin to update yesterday that I was sharing the keynote stage with David Cohen from LinkedIn. And I had the answer to one of your questions, which was the number of Lotus professionals that are on LinkedIn, and that number is 3,500. Because I got a notification, actually it was in my inbox the day before yesterday. There's 1 new manager's choice, 4 new discussions, and 8 new comments on LinkedIn. So this is the way that 1 spoonful at a time, 1 handful of dirt at a time, I'm digging out of the prison of the inbox. It's unlikely that Bruce Willis or Arnold Schwarzenegger or someone are going to come and break down the walls and break me out and get me out of there tomorrow. But 1 message, 1 tool, 1 context at a time, I'm getting out of the inbox in this way, both internally and externally. It's been amazing to me how much information finds me as a result of things like microblogging. When I post, for example, that I'm meeting with a customer next week, instead of getting buried in the inbox, people who have worked with that customer who happen to follow my movements and connections say, I have some information for you. I talked to that customer last week, and this is what's happening with them. You should know this before you go into a meeting with them. One of the reasons that I do this so heavily internally is that I can share all kinds of confidential information. Yesterday we had a 50,000 user competitive win. I don't yet have the legal release to say that I moved 50,000 users from Outlook to Notes. I'm pretty excited about it, so I can't tell you guys the name of the company. But you better believe that it went on my internal connection status yesterday so that my sales team could know about it and get excited about it. And again, this is not just a messaging inbox statement. Think about some of the other contexts that your employees or your customers or your partners work in. I showed you the examples of the portal earlier on. If you have, say, a call center, you probably don't want those call center people living in an inbox all day. They better be living in their call center application all day, and it's probably web-based. How do they access things like chat to escalate a customer service issue to a manager? You don't want them to switch to another client experience. You want them to be able to do that right in the context of the call record they're working on. Same thing for your customers. Your customers want to be able to switch from using your B2C website on their full-size PC at home to switching to a mobile device seamlessly. It needs to know about my preferences. It needs to know what I'm interested in. The things that need to be in my cart should still be there when I go over to my mobile device. That's another example of the nimbleness of social business. So a couple of successes that I wanted to talk about in addition to ourselves. BASF, large chemical company, one of our flagship reference customers for connections, had the challenge a lot of organizations that are technical do, is that they are seeing older employees retire. The formulations for their products, the knowledge of how to make their chemicals is literally retiring and leaving the organization. They had no way to capture that before they started to put it into wikis, communities, and activities in connections. KBC, large bank in Europe that I did quite a bit of work with, built a community of practice for their loan officers for small business. Doing business in Europe is very interesting because you can travel less than an hour literally, and you're speaking a different language, you're in a completely different culture, you're in a country that has its own set of regulations in addition to the EU regulations. And they, as KBC, wanted to grow across Europe, had to deal with both of those things, but wanted to have consistent product offerings for small business loans. They did that by building communities of practice for their small business loan officers in connections. AT&T is using real-time communication inside their store agent portal to give provisioning information to people in the store when you want to switch from an iPhone to a BlackBerry or an Android device to some other thing that hasn't come out yet, to give them advice on how they put in the provisioning codes in real time. Because some of these situations are difficult technically, and you need to get access to a supervisor in the technical area. Others, CSC, Massachusetts Blue Cross Blue Shield, Australian Football League, they're all integrating these social business tools and capabilities to improve their results. So I promised you some guidance on how to go and measure and look for indicators of success. How do we construct a successful social business implementation for a customer? What we focus on are outcome-based goals. And these are things you can go talk to line of business folks, not just IT folks, about to say, what would make your part of the business run more smoothly? If you're talking to someone in customer service, for example, reducing their call times by 5% can be a significant improvement to their business, right? They can handle more calls with fewer agents. Increasing customer satisfaction survey results by 15%. Any organization that you're dealing with, or your own organization that is business to consumer, is going to be tracking customer satisfaction. Things like return visits. Reducing error callbacks to call centers. Increasing follow-up calls by 5%. Your own experiences. If they have had positive experiences with other web-based tools, or you've worked with other customers in the same area, add those as indicators. No customer I know of is not trying to do more with less, or at least more with same. So how do I reduce travel costs? By using things like web meetings and making it easy for customers or users to find that right in their inbox. Easy for them to find it right in the portal. How do I increase the number of customers per teller by 5%? This was an example in financial services. A bank was trying to increase their profitability without adding resources. They needed more customers per teller. Social tools were a way that they were able to do that by tracking that indicator. Capturing institutional knowledge. This is the BASF case. I'm potentially losing the knowledge that I have to build and sell my products because I haven't captured the intellectual capital in the organization. This was done with community interests at BASF, done with communities of interest at KBC, and they track the adoption of that. They want to grow it by 5% each month. Every month they're gaining 5% more intellectual capital than they had the month before. Instituting a mentoring program. How do I take those older, more skilled, knowledgeable workers and pair them up with new hires and interns and transfer knowledge within the organization? Within IBM, we use innovation jams as the idea generation process. That's a measurable metric. We can see how many ideas come out of it, how many are vetted and approved, and how many of them actually go into production. If you're dealing with a product development organization, reducing cycle time is going to be a key indicator. Especially if it's someone like a pharmaceutical or an energy company that has a lot of regulation, there's a lot of approval processes that they need to go through. You can shorten those using things like wikis or team workspaces. They can potentially bring a product or service to market more quickly. And that can mean a lot of dollars in many cases. Increasing customer satisfaction by 25%. Mergers and acquisition is a huge case. These are two organizations that are coming together and they both have a set of skills and processes in the same industry. And the business case for a merger and acquisition is efficiency. How do we make those consistent most quickly? We see a ton of activity in team workspaces, communities, and activities around mergers and acquisitions. So insert you or your customer's pain or business objective here. How do they measure these indicators now? If they don't have a baseline, before you start a social business project is the ideal time to get one, so you know whether you're improving it. What factors impact that indicator? Is it customers per customer service rep, closed deals per sales rep? And then how can the social business tools affect that? And I would strongly recommend you get great ideas out of the information in the Institute for Business Value materials to support these with real customers and real examples. So with that, I just want to say thank you, give you my contact information as well. I know Richard is going to distribute these. I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can insist on increasing my sentence in email jail. I'll give you my email address as well, reluctantly. With that, I will turn it over, I think, to TJ Wade from Group Business Systems. TJ?